Hello everyone, welcome to the final solution walkthrough for Yajilin Yacht. This is Yajilin 16 from the contest, titled Eye of the Storm, and this is unequivocally the hardest puzzle in the contest, and I would say that it's the second hardest puzzle from any of the daily contests on LMI so far, only behind the 1, 2, 3, 4 Voxus, which to this day I still don't know how to logically solve that puzzle, but I do know how to logically solve this puzzle, and I hope that the solution here is satisfactory. So this puzzle is very carefully constructed to have no obvious starting points. There is a starting point, it's just less obvious than a lot of others. So let's take yellow for the clue here, and I'm going to highlight these 4 clues. And you can pause the video for a moment and try to figure out why these 4 clues in particular are important, but they are crucial. Alright, so let's go to blue, and let's highlight these 2 crosses in blue. Now what we can say about these 2 crosses is that there are exactly 2 shaded cells in each of them, because the middle can never be shaded. And without loss of generality, we pick one, we pick a second. Like, we cannot have 3 loop ends coming in here, and we can't have only 1, and we can't have 0. So on each of these 2 blue crosses, there is exactly 2 shaded cells. Next, let's go to orange, and let's look at these 2 2x2s. Now you might think that there can be 0 shaded cells on these, but if there's 0, then we immediately self-loop. So there must be at least 1 in each of these. And in particular, if we go back to orange, they must be on these 2 cells. In particular, because the other 2 are excluded by corners. So what that means is that between the orange and the blue, we know that there are 6 shaded cells minimum. So now let's go to green. So now I'm going to highlight what these yellow highlighted clues see. And you'll notice that it's very particular. We know that there are at least 6 shaded cells between blue and orange. We also know that there are at most 6 shaded cells between blue, orange, and green. And what that means in conclusion is that there are exactly 0 shaded cells anywhere on green. And that there are exactly 1 shaded cell, or exactly 1 shaded cell on each orange group. So that gives you all of the following dots, places where there is not a shaded cell, for free, just by noticing that, which is pretty wild. And now, this is where the really crucial step of the break-in is. You see this 2 up clue that had 2 options before? 3 options, and you couldn't really eliminate any of them? Now it has 1. Now, unfortunately, the original draft of this puzzle contained I believe it was a 2 right clue here, and that let you combo with this 1 left clue on these 2 constructions to circumvent a lot of this break-in. So I was very careful to make sure that you couldn't break the puzzle that way, and in doing so, I did accidentally make the beginning of the puzzle a little bit less fair than it originally was, and for that I do apologize. However, I still think it's reasonable enough to see that this 2 up clue is now pretty restricted. The useful bit is if you were to take these 2 cells as its options, you get this corner, you get this, and now you have a dead end. So you can see it forks the line, you can see that it creates a dead end. It doesn't matter how you see it. The important part is just seeing that these 2 cannot both be shaded together. So this cell on the bottom must be shaded. And that gives you the crucial start to the puzzle. Because we know there's exactly 1, we get this one is unshaded as well. There are 0 entrances to the top right currently. There must be at least 2. There can be exactly 2. This 3 now has exactly 1 option for how it can resolve. This 2 now has exactly 1 option for how it can resolve. This 2 needs a shaded cell on one of these 2. This 2 has only 1 shaded cell remaining where it could possibly go, so it must take there. Shading here would fork the line, so we don't. Then this 3 has exactly 2 options remaining. well, exactly 2 places where it can have shaded cells. And the rest of the bottom left with this one right clue now resolves in place. Now I'm going to take a moment to do the top right here. I believe, yes. No, not quite yet. We're almost at the point where the top right can be done. Now if we were to shade here, forks the line, makes a loop. So there's a shaded cell on one of these 2 cells as well. And if we were to take this pair, because these are linked, you can see that it would fork the line. Therefore, it must be this one. These 2 are the same line. They must not meet. Only one option left for that one. This 3 has 1 remaining over here. This shading here would fork the line. Shading here would fork the line. Trying to remember what the next step for this puzzle is. Because as you can see, even past the fairly difficult break-in, it's far from a free puzzle. Yes, the bottom left needs to have 2 escapes. It currently has 0, so it must take both of its possible ones. This 3 left now satisfies itself. This 1 down now has only 1 option remaining. This 1 down has only 1 option. This 2 is forced by not self-closing the loop. We cannot shade here without forking the line. Also, this 2 has its 2 already set. We cannot shade here without introducing a 3rd line, so we don't. At this stage, I believe, yes, you cannot shade here without forking the line. And now this 3 up clue, in what is probably the last really difficult step of this puzzle, well, this 2 left forces a shaded cell to be in one of these 2. And just like with this 2 up clue, this 3 up clue cannot have 2 shaded cells at the bottom. And the reason it cannot is that doing so would eliminate both options from the 2. It's a little hard to see, but if you're used to this kind of pattern and just the building up like so, you can see that it will create an entrance count fail, or an entrance count parity error. So this 3 has 1 shaded cell in this lower section, and thus 2 on the upper section. So then a shaded cell here from this 2, which eliminates here, and here as possibilities. We also have 1, 2, 3 entrances, with a 4th possible, which means that the 4th must be taken. We now have 1, 2 entrances with a 3rd possible. It's not taken. This is then shaded by the 3 up. This is shaded by the other 3 up. These 2 ends are the same line, which will resolve the rest of the left side of the puzzle. You can also say that these 2 lines are the same line, so they do not meet, which will then give us this cell in the corner being shaded. And at this point, you can see how this will all connect up. If we try to connect everything up in this region, we'll find that there are 0 cells left over. So once we shade here, we also need to shade a 2nd cell. And once we do, you get the following. And finally, in the top right corner, this is something that can be resolved as soon as you figure out the stuff in the top here with this 3 and get this shaded cell. Now, if you do the calculation on parity here, and I'm going to switch to a blue line for this. Let's just arbitrarily draw the line, right? We're left with 2 cells left over of the same parity. Well, that means that there must be 2 more shaded cells on that parity than the other parity. And if we look closely at this, all of the possible shaded cells are actually of the same parity. And what that means we can prove is that because we have at least 2 in this region from this 2 right, and then exactly 2 from checkerboard parity, the remainder of the region cannot have a shaded cell, which with this 1 up clue will resolve the rest of the puzzle. And that is how you solve Eye of the Storm, the final puzzle from Yajilin Yacht. The fastest solve time on this in competition was Walker Anderson's 4.5 minutes. So this was absolutely a brutal puzzle, very difficult, but very, very fair, I think, all the way through. Only a couple slightly harder or less telegraphed steps. And as a little extra bonus, uh, if you want to really challenge yourself, solve the puzzle without those 3 clues. It's still a unique puzzle. It still comes out to this exact same solution. Uh, it's a little easier with post hoc justifications, and in fact, this is how I originally created the puzzle, but ultimately, when I was test solving it, it took me quite a while to find breakthroughs in a few areas, and I found that by adding this clue, it telegraphed the bottom a lot nicer, and by adding this clue, it telegraphed the deduction with this 3 up a lot better, and of course, this clue is just symmetrically placed and telegraphs the progress with this 3, and the following break-in, like the step immediately following the break-in a little better. So that's why I added in those 3 clues, even though they're not strictly necessary. With all of that said, I hope that these solution walkthroughs for Yajilin Yacht were instructive, and if they weren't instructive, I hope they were at least entertaining. Again, congratulations to Walker Anderson, Freddie Hand, and Thomas Luo for taking the top 3 spots of the competition. And to everybody who took part, I hope you enjoyed. Looking forward to the next one of these. Until next time.